You're welcome to my channel. This is Ziglo Fashion. So today we'll be learning how to make this mermaid with drap and with yoke. There's yoke at the bust there. So if you enjoy this tutorial, please subscribe to my channel for more videos. And if you ever benefit, if you gain anything from this video, please like my channel.
So for the mermaid gown with drap, I'm going to make use of this sequence. It's net, but it has plenty sequence on it. Then velvet, and I'm going to make use of my lining, my paper stay. This is paper stay. This is lining and small wadding. So to start with, the measurement I need for the down part of the mermaid gown, the measurement I will need is the waist measurement. I mean the half length measurement, the hip measurement, and the length of the gown. So now the half length from shoulder to half length is 16 inches. Then the length of the gown is 60. So I'll measure from 16. I'll place my tape rule on 16, then to 60. Let me go this way so that you can understand better. So now I'll measure 16 here. (16 inches). So I'm starting from this point, 16, to the length of the gown. Now I said is 60, but I will add 1 inch seam allowance to it. This 60, then 1 inch seam allowance. So after getting that, I'll come back to my 16 inches. Then I'll measure the hip. I'm determining the hip on 24.5. Then the half length, the nail length rather, I'll determine it on 34. So I will rule those out. I'll now measure the circumference of the half length, which is 28 inches. So I've already folded my fabric into two, and I'm going to divide it the body's measurement into 4. So this circumference that is 28, now I'm going to divide it into 4. That's 7.5 7 inches rather. That's 7 inches. So I will chalk out 7 inches. Then for the hip is 39. 39 divided by 4 will give 9.75. I think I'm right. 9.75. Then the lean length. So I want it to be very slim. I want the shape to really come out, the fish shape, the mermaid shape. I want it to come out well. So now here at the knee length, I'm going to subtract 4 from this the hip measurement. The hip is 39. 39 minus 4 will give me 36. No, 39 minus 4 will give me 35. So 35 divided by 4 will give 8.75. So I'm going to make use of 8.75 here. So I'll come back here and add my seam allowance of 2 inches. I'll connect the lines. So for the down part, for the length of the gown, I'm going to measure the circumference I have here, which is 8.75. I'll transfer it to this place, 8.75. Then it depends on how wide you want the side to be. So I'm making use of 7 inches for my own mermaid shape. I'm making use of 7 inches. Then I will slant this to that 7 inches. That is from my from my allowance. I'm going to slant it to the 7 inches. This depends on how wide you want the down part to be. So now I'll just cut everything out. Back bodies, I placed back my front bodies on the remaining fabric. Then I left 1.5 inch for my zipper allowance. So I'm going to cut this out now, then do justice to this back. So for the back bodies, now I've chalked out my zipper allowance. Then from the hip, I'll come down to the knee length rather. Then I'll come in after the zipper allowance. I'll measure 1 inch inside, then slant it to the hip measurement. Then from there, I will slant it down again. Now I've cut out that part. Then I will open up the zipper allowance for the mermaid gown. Then I'm done cutting the for the tail. I'll measure from the knee length to the down to the length of. So after measuring from the knee length to the gown length, I have 26 inches. So I added few inches to my 26. So I added 6 inches for the tail. So now I'll measure the 31 inches for the tail. Then for where I'll connect to my half length, the side, I measure 26, from the knee length to the gown length is 26. So I measure 26, then connect it to the 31. Then after that, I'll give it a slant shape. It's in form of triangle. So if you like, you can make it wider than this depending on how much fabric you have. My customer's fabric is not really much, so that's why I'm making this small tail. And I'll cut it out. So now you can see the tail. They're not really big. Yours can be bigger than this. I'm making use of my lining to cut it, and the upper body is as yoke. So what I'll do now is mermaid thread. I'll measure the half length. I'm starting from here, this is the shoulder. So I'll measure the half length. The half length is 16 inches. So I will add half inch to it, making 16.5 inches. So then I'll measure the shoulder to nipple point, that's 9.5. Then shoulder to half length is 13 inches. So I'll rule out everything. Now I'll measure the circumference of the shoulder. That's 16 inches divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. I'll come down to this point again and measure the circumference of the bust. That's 37. 37 divided by 2 will be divided by 4. Sorry. 37 divided by 4. That's 9.37. 9.25. Then the under bust is 31. 31 divided by 4, that's 7.75. The half length is 28 inches. 28 divided by 4 will give me 7. So I'll connect the lines. Then I'll measure my seam allowance of 2 inches. So come out to this shoulder. I'll measure 7 inches. Then I'll connect the shoulder to the 7 inches. So from this 7 inches, impulse to this, the circumference I have here, I'll transfer it here. Then I'll add 1 inch to it.
slant the shoulder. So the arm will render. Now I'll come back to the shoulder, then measure from that 7 inches. I'll measure 4.5 inch. From that point, this sharp edge, I'll measure 1 inch inside. So after doing this, then I want to cut out my bustier now. So for the bustier, I'll measure the nipple to nipple. The nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'll measure that 3.5 from the nipple point to the half length. I'll roll it out. So after this 3.5, I'll measure again 2 inches. From this point, I'll measure 2 inches till it gets to the under bust. So from the nipple point, the nipple to nipple, I'll come out with ½ inch. So what is going to happen here is that these 2 inches, this side and this other side will share the 2 inches. So this is taking half, and the other side is going to take the remaining 1.5. So I'll just slant it to the under bust. So the effect of all these things is going to be to start at the under bust till it gets to the shoulder, the 4.5 inch I measure at the shoulder. So I'm going to slant this ½ inch to the 4.5 at the shoulder. And this one now, I'm going to give it a curve shape, like bust. Okay. So from there, from this 4.5, I'll still come again and measure 3 inches. So I'm going to connect this particular bust shape to the 3 inches. Now I'm done with the shape. So I will just stop it down to make this my normal the arm I first measured them. So you know I've removed 2 inches from here. I'll add the 2 inches back. And I'll cut it out. So if I want to cut now, I don't need this place. All these ones, I need to cut them out. So aside from that, these other ones, they are very useful. So now I will notch the under bust of this. Then I will notch the under bust of this as well. So if I'm sewing, they must align with each other. So now I'll put this aside. Let me cut the back first. So after that, I'll now do the yoke. So let me cut the back. For the back, I'll measure the half length, which is 16 inches. Then I will add ½ inch to it for my seam. Then I'll come back to this shoulder. Then I'll measure my nipple point. That's 9.5 inches. Then the other bust is 13 inches. So I'll roll them out. After that, I'll measure the zipper allowance. The down part I use 1.5, so I'm going to make use of 1.5 for these upper bodies as well. 3.5. So just connect the line of the shoulder. The shoulder is 16 inches. So I will use 16 inches. I'll measure 16 inches. Then the circumference of the bust is 37. So 37 divided by 4, that will give me 9.25. Then after that, I'll measure the circumference of the shoulder. The shoulder is 16 inches. So I'll use 16 inches. I'll measure 16 inches. Then the circumference of the bust is 37. So 37 divided by 4, that will give me 9.25. The under bust is 31. 31 divided by 4 give me 7.75. The half length is 28. 28 divided by 4 will give me 7. I'll connect the lines. Then I'll add 2-inch seam allowance. After that, I will measure 7 inches. So I'm transferring everything I have here. Then add 1 inch to it. So I'll come back to this point, then measure 4.5 the way I did for the front. Then 1 inside. So after that, I'll just put my dart. The nipple to nipple is 3 inches, then I had one half width, so making 4. Then I will come out here with half inch, then here to half inch, and I'll give it a slant shape. I open it up. So for the next line, I'm going to measure 3.5 inches. Then for the length, I'm going to come down with just 1.5 inch. And here at the shoulder, I'll measure 1 inch, then slant this neckline to the 1 inch. Then I will notch the zipper allowance. So now back to the front bodies. I'm done with this. I will measure 3.5 inches. Then from there I'll come down with 3 inches. So let me make use of 3.5 inches. I'll come down with 3.5 inches. Then I'll cut that out. Then for the yoke, I'll measure 6.5. Then from that 6.5, 7 inches. So from that 7 inches, I'll shape my now to reshape the armhole. 7 inches. You know, I've joined the two together. So this is the shape of my yoke. from here to here, from the shoulder to this point, I'm using 5.5 inches. Then from shoulder to the middle of the bustier, I'm using 7 inches. Then I will slant the shoulder. So from here to here, 5.5. From here to here, 7 inches. So then, I said I measure 7 from here to the armhole again. Let me first cut out the armhole shape. I'll measure 1 inch for the slope, then plant it back to the neckline. Then for the yoke now, this is going to be my yoke. So just cut it out. Then I'll place this on my lace, and I'm going to cut this out. I use my lining for this, so I'm going to cut this out on my velvet, then cut the yoke out on my lace. So let me go ahead and do that. For me to cut out my yoke on my lace, I'll add allowance to it for my joining. So I'm going to add 1/2 inch allowance to it. Cut out my yoke. Then I'll go ahead and cut my back borders of this net as well. Now I'll go and cut this as well on my velvet. Let me notch that. So it is velvet I'll first use to face.
So after joining the bustier together, I now want to join the yoke to it. So I'll pin the middle of my bustier with the yoke. Then I will stitch it around. So I'm starting from the edge. So now I'll stitch the two together, both the yoke and the bustier. I've already pinned it down. I'll just stitch it around. And when you are stitching, ensure it's no more than the 1/2 inch you gave as allowance.
Now I'm done stitching it. So after stitching the two together, I'll add my lining to it. So I'm taking the right side of the lining plus the right side of my bustier. So I'll use pin to secure the middle together. Then I'll start my sewing.
So now I've attached uh, my doll face to my neck because I used doll face here. So now the next thing I'll do now is to turn it with my lining. I've done my paper stitch, my lining. I've done my that as well. So now I'll stitch the neckline first.
I've stitched the lining to my bodies. So the next thing I'll do now is to sew the down bodies. So this is for the back. Now the back side, it has additional tail. So I've stitched the middle together. Now this is the tail. So the stitched part, I left, I used 28 inches tail. So I measured where the tail is going to end here and I notch it out. So now what I will do now is this edge, I'm going to place it here. This is the back. So I'll place it here, then stitch the two together. Now I'm done stitching the tail. The next thing now is to join the upper bodies of this mermaid gown with the down bodies and the upper bodies together. So this is this for this.
So now I'll place my front bodies on my back bodies, and first of all I'll join the shoulder together. That's the shoulder of the front and the back. I'm joining the two together. So now I want to stitch out my client's measurement.